Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at the raw food, cooked food perspective. And that's exactly what I've done in my last 3 videos, where I took a closer look at politics. I looked at both extremes, collectivism on the far left and anarchy on the far right. And I explained how neither one of those are going to work in a sick world, and we live in a sick world. And nothing in between will work either. But when we get reconnected and change our collective mentality, we will have a form of collectivism and anarchy at the same time, where we realize the solution has to do with a principle called autarky, where the individual and the collective are both recognized. So that if we have, let's say, property that's socially used, it'll be socially owned and democratically controlled. But we'll still have private property for individuals. So it's not the same thing as communism, where you don't have any ownership of private property. So we have to recognize what does it take for these two things to happen. Well, it really starts with the individual. That's why we can't try to fix any system. That's not the solution. The system was never the solution, and we can't fix the system. Or there's only one way to fix the system, and that is to get the individuals that make up the system to change. So you're really not fixing the system, you're fixing the individual. Which is why I started off to say that. There's no way you can fix the system. All we can do is address the root problem, that collectively we are disconnected. That's the fall of mankind. So when I say the raw food, cooked food perspective, and you always have to use that no matter what you talk about, is because the raw food corrects the fall of mankind. This is why we have the Dark Ages. This is not complicated. This is not a no-brainer. It's obvious as all get out that when we put our food in the fire, it ruins the food, it ruins us, it alters us. But yet we're under a spell, the hunger spell. As Plato said, whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. That's what happens with people who eat cooked food. You've got the wrong mentality, and you're going to defend that, saying, I'm a good guy. There's nothing wrong with eating cooked food. We don't understand how cooked food affects everyone, and that we're all in this bell of behavior. And a lot of us are doing pretty good. Some of us are really close to the saint side, aren't we? But look at the other side of the bell, and then look at the edges of the bell. That's what's controlling all of us. That's what most of us just don't understand. That our brains are bombarded with so much bullshit. We have so many references that support certain lies that are crucial for the powers to be where they are, that when we hear the truth, we can't accept it. Because here comes a new idea coming at us. It's a tabletop without any legs, and we say, oh, I recognize that. It challenges this belief over here, where we got 1,000 references. And I never even put them in there. They were just bombarded in my brain. Every time I turned around, I was being indoctrinated to believe this is true, this is true, this is true. So it's virtually impossible to help some people understand something this profound unless they do it themselves and have a brand new reference. That's the only way to challenge that many references. When you've got a belief that has that many legs, the only thing you can do is test an idea as time has come. And then you'll see for yourself that life is an illusion. That all these systems that we've had that were set up to try to solve our problems, and we've been bombarded, ask your doctor, that's the only solution. You're going to realize, my God, these people weren't the solution. I only got worse in the 10, 20, 30 years I've been taking their drugs. And what do? I go on a juice fast, I eat raw food, I do a water fast, and what happens? The problems go away. Why? Because we corrected 5 main mistakes. What's the first one? Cooking our food. It's the first big mistake. If we didn't make that mistake, we wouldn't be eating animals. That's the second mistake. Then we wouldn't be eating grains. That's the third mistake. Thank you, the agricultural revolution. Then we wouldn't be processing our foods. There's the industrial revolution when we started making machines. And then the chemicals. My God, what are we doing to ourselves? We're digging our own graves with our forks and our plates and our teeth. We are the enemy. We're doing it to ourselves. And then the condition of what we got, again, we got this bell of bad behavior where we got the worst of us, the sickest of us, exploiting the sickness in us. And sickness begets sickness. And there's only one solution to get out of this maddening hellhole we created, and that is for all of us to get reconnected. So that's where the individual comes first. But then when we look at the nation state, how do we become self-sufficient? Are there lessons we can learn from last century if we had had access to that knowledge? But guess what? When we're exposed to that knowledge, we've got this huge belief system over here that has thousands of references that prove you've got to be wrong. There's a lot of it, time and investment and money put into certain belief systems that make most people have a knee-jerk emotional reaction to the truth when they hear it. And if the information is presented in a very logical form, people are going to realize, oh my God, this guy's making sense. Better interrupt him so he doesn't make his point, so that way I don't have to delete any information. And this is what most of us do. A lot of us don't want to know that this is the twilight zone. Most of us don't want to know that we have a collective shadow. Look, I'm doing the best I can with my individual shadow, those unwanted aspects of ourselves that we have a tendency to forget. We have a very selective memory. Carl Jung called it our shadow. There's an individual shadow and a collective shadow. A lot of people don't want to wake up to reality that we have a collective shadow that wants to keep us where we are, that manipulates our belief system and misdirects our so-called experts so that they'll never figure out any of our problems. I don't know if I've got a bunch of guys coming down to pick up this trash or not right now. They were down the street a little while ago. I hear a bunch of noise coming at me. I might have to cut this short. Anyway, major distraction there. So what do we do? If we have all these references and a new belief comes along, what's the average person going to be able to do? They're not going to be able to even think. They've actually become brain dead at that point. You see, if our brains have been bombarded with bullshit and we're not taught critical thinking skills, and when the truth comes to us, we should eat raw food, we should learn from history and not let people keep printing our money. If we learn, you know, if we're told those type of things and we don't want to hear it, we literally shut our brain off. We don't want to hear it. It's called unrealistic optimism, and this is one of the hardest things that we're up against right now. And many times we have that feeling because we feel helpless. But once we've done this, as I pointed out, if you have this brand new reference, we can challenge all those old references. But what we have to realize is we really do need to work upstream and downstream. And to finish my point, by working downstream, we have to take back control of the money. We have to become self-sufficient as a nation. We are conquered by debt right now. And most people around the world are under this same predicament. And we need to change that. So if you are looking at politics, for example, how do you use a raw food, cooked food perspective to understand politics? Well, you have to understand the only people really qualified to be our leaders are people who've gone where few have gone, so they can lead us to where we need to go. So if they don't understand the raw food, cooked food connection, if they don't understand that cooking our food's the fall of mankind and that's the only thing we should devote our energy toward, then they're not our solution, period. Now, they may have a good downstream solution. Let's end the Fed. I like that. Anybody who says let's end the Fed, let's see if they'll hold up to that promise. A lot of people make promises, right? We've seen that all the time. And how many times do people deliver? But yet the press can make us think differently, can't they? It's amazing. Learned a valuable lesson last night to make sure I preference some of my stories by asking certain questions. If I'm going to try to point out how we can't trust history in the past to somebody, I need to first find out, do you trust the news that you listen to now? I had a conversation with a woman last night and she acknowledged that she knew that there was a small group of people who owned the media, but then she couldn't understand how her beliefs were influenced by that media control, and how she couldn't understand that history, that can't be the right version of the history. No, those are the bad guys. I got too many references, you see. This is the problem. When we have too many references to make us believe certain things, we won't do the right thing. We won't understand how important it is for us to stop letting someone else print our money. We live on an abundant planet. 2 countries proved that to us, to the world. They were flourishing when the rest of the world was starving. How can we be starving on an abundant planet? Scarcity is an illusion, and that is one of the most important illusions that the people who rule the world want us to believe in, and there's a lot of invested time and money in making us believe certain things so we'll never see that connection. That's why we don't understand the real truth about what happened last century. What happened last century? Well, the governments themselves killed 262 million people during peacetime. Google democide, and you'll find those facts that the University of Hawaii put together. And then we see we had 2 major world wars, and the interesting thing is both sides financed both sides of the war. And then we're lied to about the actual reason for the war and who the bad people were, because when we attack people, it's because the people who rule the world want us to attack them, because they're usually proving to everyone else that we live on an abundant planet. And that's what happened to Germany and Japan. They were proving to the world, look what happens to us when we don't let someone else print our money and take away all the money and profits and make us pay interest on it. Look what happened to us. Look what we did to our country. We went from the poorest to the richest. They called it the German miracle. We've been lied to about history so that we don't learn we live on an abundant planet. The illusion of scarcity is one of the biggest lies told by the biggest liars in the world who rule the world. You have to understand that's what they are. They're psychopaths. All psychopaths are con artists. All psychopaths are habitual liars. We're being lied to. Wake up. If you believe the official story of 9/11, you are brain dead. And why? Because you watch the media, you believe that bullshit. Your brain's been bombarded with bullshit. If you believe the official story of 9/11, you are literally brain dead because you can't think. You can't have someone come up and say, well, wait a second. Do you know about Building 7? Do you know that it was controlled, demolished? That it was wired before the event? And if that building was wired, so were the other 2? That's a smoking gun. There's no case closed, man. If you don't know that, then you're watching the news. If you believe 9/11, if you believe the official story of 9/11, you'll believe anything because you're brain dead, man. Building 7, watch it, watch it, watch it. It was wired. So were the other 2 buildings. You're not going to wire this one. Well, we always have buildings wired in case the 2 big ones come down. Come on, man. You people can't trust history. Question everything. Question what I say. Question a raw food diet. Question a juice fast. And how do you do it? You do it. You don't just say, oh, this person failed on it, this person failed on it. Don't look at people who fail, look at people who thrive. Oh, there aren't that many sedentarians. Well, there's a reason for that. We don't represent much of a population. Remember, fall of mankind happened on a football field about the 1-yard line. 99% into existence. That's about 60,000 years ago. We didn't really start recording history till what? When we became civilized on the 3-inch line. We moved into farm communities, the Industrial Revolution, on the 6-inch line. So, that's when we started recording history. And guess what? Everything that's in our history is after the fall of mankind. So it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit because we're not correcting the fall of mankind. So we have to look at everything from a raw food, cooked food perspective. Otherwise, you got the wrong mentality. Because when you cook your food, you destroy what's known as a biophoton. Don't go to Wikipedia and read about biophotons, you fools. Don't you know Wikipedia is owned and controlled by those small group of people? Come on, man. Question the source of where you're getting information. And remember what Aristotle said. Believe only your own experience. There is no fact like a fact that's learned from your own life. The only problem now is we have a malfunctioning survival mechanism. We can't trust our own feedback system because we built a tolerance to our mistakes. So what's the solution? Go on a solid food vacation and go long enough so that when you go back and eat crap, your body's going to tell you, this ain't food. And when you eat the right food, it's just going to go, oh, this makes more sense than ever. This is why we struggle so much. Even people within this community are short-sighted people, where they think there's only 2 ways to correct the 5 main mistakes we're making. And they don't acknowledge the 3rd way. And those are the ones that say, oh, you shouldn't do the 3rd way. It threatens what we do. Yeah, it does in the beginning. But after a while, if we can use the 3rd way, which is my solid food vacation, a juice fast, a juice feast, when we do it this way, and you go down below in the description box and go to a seminar I did, when you do it this way, you see results 10 times faster. You don't have to take a vacation from life. My God, one person who protected his water fasting clinic said, if you don't have time to take a water fast, you don't respect yourself. Come on, you fool. A 3-week water fast takes a 6-week vacation from life, from family responsibilities. Who can do that? Who can do that? No one. You're not going to reach the tipping point doing that. And then you poo-poo the only thing that can get us to the tipping point. And if we get to the tipping point, guess what's going to happen to the water fasting business? Think win-win. You guys are short-sighted. Lauren Lockwood, the same way, man. You poo-poo juice fasting. Shame on you, man. It's superior to water fasting. And I love water fasting, but juice fasting is superior, and you say it's not superior. You're not addressing our other group of needs when you do a water fast. Water fasting, just like a raw food diet, is only works in an ideal world. We don't live in an ideal world anymore. We have another group of needs. This is one reason why a raw vegan diet might not work for everybody. Because we've got this other group of needs because of the damage we've done to ourselves, society, and the environment. I've already talked about what do we do about society. Number one, stop letting other people print our money. National self-sufficiency. But then we have to realize that the environment and our anatomy has also been damaged. Now we got another group of needs. Oh, the ideal diet's not the ideal diet. You got to supplement. Can't be ideal if it's supplement. No, it's an ideal diet, an ideal world. We've damaged things. We got to understand and address those issues. Water fast doesn't do that. Right now, babies are born with 287 chemicals in the umbilical cord. Everyone's got toxic chemicals in them. On a water fast, we're not given the nutrients that are needed for a 2-phase process for our liver to go through to get rid of that stuff. And it can damage us in the meantime. Still doesn't mean that most people will probably still better off doing the water fast. But it's no longer the best preparation for a better way of life. Only in an ideal world was water fasting the best preparation. It's no longer ideal. It's the juice fast. It's far superior. Look at people who have experience in both of them, and they all say juice fasting is superior, superior, superior. Then once you do it, then you can do something more aggressive like a water fast, and I'll be the first to admit there's two different things going on here. But the main thing you guys aren't acknowledging is people are afraid to death of water fasting. Juices, hey, that sounds like a vacation. It is. Now that's a solid food vacation people can take and enjoy and have better and better success and not have to lay in bed and not even read because they don't want to waste any energy, which is basically what you have to do on a water fast. So it's funny, the people who advocate the water fasting, it all starts with innovation. Innovation is number one. That's how we get sick. And they say, oh, the herbs are innovating. This is innovating. You don't think a water fast is innovating? Hell, you got to take 1 day to recuperate for every day you do it. So a 3-week water fast is going to take 6 weeks out of your life. Well, it's not innovating. Why does it take 3 weeks to recuperate? But it's a fair trade, isn't it? You bet it is. So I don't go around poo-pooing water fasting, but I'm fed up with people that poo-poo juice fasting. Short-term, narrow-minded people who can't think long-term, who don't understand we got to get reconnected. And the raw food message is overwhelming for most people. It's too hard to do. We need a better transition. We need something that's a better preparation because we got to have that raw food mentality. Otherwise, it's the wrong mentality. And why is it wrong? We destroy the biophotons. What are biophotons? It's coherent sunlight energy that we store in the nucleus of our cells. It's faster than the speed of light. Ties into an experiment Einstein did called the I can't remember the EPR Paradox. I want to start out with P instead of E. The EPR Paradox. And it's been duplicated many times where they prove that faster than light communication exists. That's our sixth sense. It's our spidey sense. And it's too low, man. That's why everything has to be understood from our biophoton level. So if we're going to talk politics, if we want to have leaders, our leaders have to have an optimum biophoton level. We should only have one law. In fact, if I was to be president, here's an idea. Let's vote John Rose for president. And I'll have two laws. One has to do with biophoton levels. Everyone has to have a minimal biophoton level, and we'll be real generous in the beginning. But politicians have to have an optimum biophoton level because these are our leaders, and we can't have leaders if they don't know where to go. The only people who can help us get out of this hole are people who have gone where few have gone. And they know that we can rise above the ideas of the time right now. They have the directions, and that's who we should have as politicians. And then, interestingly, if you're a criminal and you still can't behave properly, you too want to have an optimum biophoton level. We're not going to let you have a minimal biophoton level because apparently you can't handle a little bit of the wrong stuff. It's still affecting you, and that still may not be enough. But we're going to at least bump up those biophotons, see if that doesn't make a difference. I find it interesting that both the politicians and the criminals both have to have those optimal biophoton levels. Then the other law I'd have would have to be with a downstream solution with the government at the meantime. And this goes back to the book by John Adams, Wealth of Nations, where he said there's three groups of people: those who live by wages, by rent, and by profit. And the first two groups, those who live by wages and those who live by rent, they have the same interests as everyone else. But those who live by profit don't have the same interests as the public, because they want to narrow their competition and widen their market. So the other law is that no one who lives by profit can communicate to any of our leaders. There's no communication, verbally and financially. That's how you get the money out of politics. Everybody who's in there making money cannot communicate to our leaders. Get away from us. You're not in our best interest. Don't you see? Adam Smith pointed this out. Those who live by wages, those who live by rent, those who live by profit, no communication to our leaders. And leaders have to have an optimum biphoton level. There's my platform. That will get us back to paradise. So write my name in on the pallet. Wouldn't that be something? Yeah, let's get me go viral. And that's the only thing we should focus on. So all of our politicians, it's a distraction. It's a distraction. Remember, if we're not getting reconnected, everything's a distraction. Every time we turn around, distraction, distraction, distraction. I do a video and I point out saying, oh, this guy I thought was pretty honest. Oh, this guy, no, he's not honest. He has ties with this. This is what he thinks. Distraction, distraction, distraction. Don't go there, man. Don't go into details. Who cares who these people are? That's not of any importance. That's another distraction. Oh, they're these people, they're these people, they're these people. Oh, no, that's a distraction. It's not who's doing it, it's what they're doing and what we got to do. See, that's how controlled opposition works. They don't care what they tell us, because it's not what we know, it's what we do. And what do we have to do? We've got to take back control over who prints our money, number one. And then we got to get reconnected. So, upstream, downstream. Simple solution, two groups of needs, and that's all we have to do. Simple platform. Don't allow those who live by profit to communicate with our leaders, and realizing that this is all downstream. And once we reach the tipping point, once we change collectively and our mentality changes, we won't have an exchange mentality anymore. We'll have a gift mentality. We'll have a resource-based economy. And the reason is because we'll bump up our biophotons, we'll feel connected to everything around us, and then we'll realize, hey, if I'm part of everything, how can I improve my life? No brainer. Let me improve everything around me. And everyone's going to have that mentality. And the more we give, the more we receive. Life is an illusion. We live on an abundant planet. But you've been tricked into thinking there's scarcity. You've been tricked into thinking Germany and Japan did something bad. They did something good. They stopped letting someone print their money. They flourished when everyone else was starving. Why do you want your children to starve? Why do you want your children to be slaves? Why are you a slave? Why can't you wake up? Your brains are bombarded with bullshit. You're brain dead. Most people are brain dead. Because you've had so much bullshit bombarded in your brain, you can't allow raw food to come into your life. You can't allow the concept that there are psychopaths who rule the world come into your life. And we don't want to put too much attention on these psychopaths. Again, it doesn't matter who they are. We just got to be aware that they're there and do damage control based on what they did. And the main thing they've done is they've taken our government and are using it to control us. So we got to change all the bullshit in there and replace all those stupid laws with two laws, biophoton levels, and those who live by profit, until we change our mentality where no one's going to think like that anymore. It's the wrong mentality. Raw food, cooked food, perspective. Wrong mentality, cooked food mentality, disconnected, clueless, downstream solutions, always downstream solutions, downstream, downstream, downstream. You never work downstream unless you're going upstream. That's what we have to do. That's where all of our energy has to be. And then we have to deal with the crap that we've got the best we can. So, if you haven't done a juice fast yet, or a juice feast, or a solid food vacation, if you're not motivated yet, listen to the Dr. Rober interview when he was on day 21, loses 20 pounds, medical miracle, no more backache, no more headache. Cholesterol dropped 100 points. Blood pressure normal, he's in his 50s, back when he was in high school. Watched the Deborah Duncan show. 6 of my students were on there. 60-day juice fast, varicose veins gone. 90-day juice fast, bunion gone. 3 weeks, no more gout. 1 week, out of bed for the first time in 5 years with fibromyalgia, couldn't even move. An athlete who used to finish mid-pack now wins every race. I'm telling you, man, there's an idea as time has come, and that is to stop cooking our food and gain back a perspective that makes sense. We gotta come from a 6-sense species, not a 5-sense species. That's the raw food, cooked food mentality. 6 senses, 5 senses. Senseless, clueless, illusions, downstream, downstream, downstream. Complicated. Distractions. That's what all that is. As long as you think there's nothing wrong cooking your food, everything you're going to do is a distraction. Now, sure, you can make hell a little bit better. Sure, if you look at the political spectrum, you can say, well, I kind of like this side a little better than that side, and there's a difference. But it's all an illusion, man. If you don't know the raw food, cooked food perspective, all your opinions are pretty much worthless. Seriously. I listened to a video this morning. Guy went on, talked about politics, and doesn't understand the big picture. If you don't have a good, clear understanding of the big picture, then you won't understand that not everyone has a right to do whatever they want to do. Now, this is an interesting thought to consider. Do you have a right to do anything you want? Sure, if it doesn't harm anybody, but when you don't keep your biophoton levels up to the right level, you're harming everyone. People don't realize that. Oh, don't say that. I can't do this. My cooked food doesn't affect anybody. No, you pull everyone down. Think of it this way. If you were a herd of animals, let's just say there's 1,000 of you, and you're going out into this pasture, and all the young ones look over there at this polluted pasture that smells really sweet, and they all go over there and start eating that shit. And those older guys go, oh no, we saw what happened last time. You guys can't do that because you represent half our herd. We can't have a bunch of sick, we can't have a bunch of you sick guys in our herd. You're going to slow us down. You're going to make us go extinct. You don't have a right to bring the herd down, and that's what they're doing. That's what we're doing. We don't have a right to eat junk because then you become junk, and we're all one. And this is what most of us don't get. That's why there's a raw food, cooked food perspective. We're all one. Cookies don't get it. But when you stop cooking your food, you start realizing, hey, I'm sensing something. Kind of reminds me of how I felt when I was a kid. Because according to Dr. Pop, we start off at 43,000 biophotons. Most of us are around 1,000 to 23,000 biophotons, when we should be 83,000 biophotons. And number one way to heal alternative in Germany is a juice fast, 114,000 biophotons. You want to bump up your biophotons. You want to transform your life. Go on a juice fast, and you can bump up those biophotons, and then you'll flush out all that shit that you got inside your system that Victor Hugo referred to as a serpent. And see, those are the two main things that are contributing to the dark side of our behavior. We've literally have a serpent inside our body, which represents all that crappy shit that most people are carrying around in their intestines. The average person has 12 or 15 mils that are backed up relatively fresh in their pipes, and that's a serpent. It's a sewage system that's seeping back into the body and polluting the blood and polluting the thoughts. And then we don't have enough of the sunlight energy in the nucleus of our cells. Those are the two huge contributing factors to the dark side of our behavior. And that's the reason why we struggle getting out of hell. Because we've got the darkest of us, the sickest of us, the worst of us, taking advantage of the fact that we're sick and keeping us where we are. So we have this collective shadow that we don't want to admit exists. But we have to admit that it exists. We have to admit what it's done. We got to correct what it's done and realize there's only one way to defeat that aspect of our collective shadow. That's for us to get rid of our individual shadows. Only way to get rid of our individual shadows is to get reconnected. Period. That's where we start. Now, remember, we've damaged ourselves also. So we've done psychological damage. We've bombarded our brains with a lot of bullshit. That stuff just doesn't immediately just clear away from us once we get rid of that serpent and clean the rest of ourselves. We still have a bunch of indoctrination to do. De-indoctrination. Because we've been indoctrinated. So there's a lot of downstream work we have to do once we get reconnected. Once we adopt a raw food diet, we may still have emotional issues. We may still have psychological issues. Because we live in a sick world, and a lot of us have gone through hell. But we don't want to focus too much attention on that. We want to be able to release it, let go with it. And that's what's so good about a juice fast, because you do cleanse on an emotional level too. So as I've said many times, there is one thing stronger than all the armies in the world. And that's an idea's time has come. And how can an idea defeat all the armies in the world? Because it changes our mentality. We've got the wrong mentality. It's a cooked food mentality. We got to get a raw food mentality. We got to change our mentality. If we don't change our mentality, things will never change. And that's never going to happen unless we reach the tipping point. So what's it going to take to reach the tipping point? Well, give me a thumbs up. Share my videos. Comment. Keep the conversation lively. Be polite and respectful. 99% of you guys are just unbelievable commenters. If you haven't read the comments in my videos, people are sharing their experience. We've got lots of people right now, as of the time I'm taping this and uploading it later on today, lots of people doing this. People sharing what's happening to them, how they're feeling, the ups and downs. And so we all have our own individual damage. And this is why we're all going to have unique stories on how it helps us. But, and then always remember, you play an active role in figuring out how your body's been damaged, because we have to give our body everything it needs. And if we're damaged and our body's not getting something it needs, we have to be aware of that. If certain systems aren't working, if our adrenals aren't working, we're going to have blood sugar issues. So we have to realize we can't do certain things if it doesn't work. So stay flexible. Take it one day at a time, and if it doesn't work, you change gears. But and ideally, you want to go the distance, and no one knows how long that is. You take it one day at a time, and when you do it, my friends, you're in for a treat.